Good afternoon to you. 3:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour from Empower Oversight, Tristan Leavitt. We're going to talk about breaking news involving Hunter Biden, the CIA, and the man who's been paying all of Hunter Biden's bills. Brand new information on that subject and the role the CIA is playing. Just jaw-dropping stuff. Tristan Leavitt goes over the details with us. Josh Hammer is here at 4 o'clock from Newsweek and the host of the Josh Hammer Show. We talked to him about revelations from the Biden administration in the past 24 hours. You know that pier that they built into Gaza? It turns out they haven't delivered a single sandwich to civilians there. It's all been a big, expensive scam, publicity stunt. Josh Hammer weighs in on that. Curtis Houck will be here from Newsbusters at 5 o'clock. And David Asher is here at 5:30. As we talk about other breaking news today involving the origins of COVID and the ensuing cover-up. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We are now about 20 minutes away from congressional testimony by Anthony Fauci's top lieutenant inside of the United States government, a man by the name of Dr. David Morens, who worked alongside Fauci for decades. He handled all of the most important things for Fauci, and he is supposed to testify today before the COVID committee that's looking into the origins of COVID, the United States government's involvement, the World Health Organization, the Chinese government, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, all of the very obvious questions that everyone has. That's what this committee is looking into with Republican governance. Democrats, by and large, have tried to short-circuit these inquiries as a part of playing into the cover-up, but we need these answers. And Dr. Morens is set to testify today. Now, you may remember that we've had some testimony in just the last week where Congressman James Comer was questioning a member of NIH, a deputy director there by the name of Dr. Lawrence Tabak, about emails that they have obtained from this Fauci lieutenant, David Morens. And in those emails, Comer was going over how some of them declared that Morens was bragging to Peter Daszak how you could evade FOIA. You could evade public disclosure of these very damning conversations. Here he is last week reading out the transcripts of some of these emails.
Shifting to some questions regarding NIH's document retention policies. Dr. David Morens, a senior advisor to Dr. Fauci for decades, wrote in an email to Dr. Daszak, quote, "I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I am FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we're all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail," end quote. Is that consistent with NIH document retention policies?
It is not.
Does the NIH FOIA office teach employees how to avoid transparency?
I certainly hope not.
He also later wrote Dr. Daszak, and I quote, "We are all smart enough to know to never have smoking guns, and if we did, we wouldn't put them in emails. And if we found them, we would delete them," end quote. Is that consistent with NIH document retention policies?
It is not.
Finally, emails show that Dr. Morens would share internal discussions regarding upcoming FOIA releases with Dr. Daszak. He would then help Dr. Daszak craft responses to documents being released in these FOIAs. Are those actions consistent with NIH policies?
If those actions occurred, they would not be consistent. No.
So do these actions concern you, Dr. Tabak?
It does indeed.
What is Dr. Morens' current employment status?
He is an employee of NIH.
He is still an employee of NIH and set to testify here within minutes to the COVID committee. And boy, does he have a lot to answer for here, including allegations that he lied in a transcribed testimony to Congress about his communications and the types of things he was working on when it came to funding EcoHealth Alliance and working with its president, Peter Daszak. Now, Peter Daszak, you've heard that name a lot on this program. We've talked about him for years now, was the man who was taking U.S. government money and then sending it into the Wuhan Institute of Virology. big grants signed off by Dr. Fauci, sent to Dr. Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance, and then spent on souping up coronaviruses and making them more infectious and deadly to humans in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. One of the most important stories of any of our lives, and not receiving the type of media attention this story deserves at all. But here are some of the additional details today released by members of Congress. They have obtained all of these emails from Dr. Morens because he was trying to hide them on his Gmail account. They were able to get access to his Gmail account, force him by way of a subpoena to turn over these documents, and finding that he was conducting official business not on government email, but instead on private email. And these emails reveal a lot. Among the things that he's talking about, November 18th, 2021, in an email to Peter Daszak, he writes, I ask you both, there's somebody else on the CC line, that nothing gets sent to me except to my Gmail, he writes. Nothing gets sent to me except to my Gmail. In other words, we need to evade public disclosure. We've got to keep this off of government systems. The New York Post quoting here about all of this, the 35-page memo released by subcommittee majority staff suggests that Fauci, Morens' former boss at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, participated in a, quote, conspiracy amongst the highest levels of the agency to hide and potentially destroy official records regarding the origins of COVID-19. Fauci's advisor, writing in an April 21st, 2021 email, quote, there is no worry about FOIAs. I can either send stuff to Tony on his private Gmail or hand it to him at work or at his house, the advisor said. Quote, he is too smart to let colleagues send him stuff that could cause trouble. What does this tell you? Well, everything. It tells you that Fauci's top advisor knows that Fauci has been hiding records from the public through both private email and in-person handoffs. They would not use official communications means for fear that it would become public. So they would use private email and in-person handoffs. We need Tony Fauci's private emails. We need them desperately. Now, of course, this guy Morens has admitted, and you heard James Comer say, that the FOIA lady gave him some tips on how to hide all this information from the public. And certainly there may have been a rampant effort to delete information that would be in the public interest here because they're trying to prevent these, quote, smoking guns from going out. Additional emails highlighted today by the New York Post. Quote, we are all smart enough to know to never have smoking guns. And if we did, we wouldn't put them in emails. And if we found them, we'd delete them, according to that June 16th, 2020 email Morens sent just 2 months after EcoHealth's Wuhan grant was initially suspended. Quote, if I had to bet, I would guess that beneath Tony's macho, I am not worried reaction, he really is concerned. Morens wrote that in an email on April 22nd of 2021. That's about Anthony Fauci's private worries about the EcoHealth grant. So in other words, as Fauci was sitting in public telling us, no, that wasn't gain of function research, whatever you're saying, Senator Paul, you are completely wrong, all that stuff, these were lies. He was sweating bullets about the role that he played in the origins of COVID-19 and the money that was flowing into a dangerous lab in China. According to his top advisor, quote, if I had to bet, I would guess that beneath Tony's macho, I am not worried reaction, he really is concerned. Alarmingly, the NIH advisor, Morens, may have also received a, quote, kickback for his assistance to the disgraced Manhattan-based EcoHealth Alliance, which funded experiments on novel bat coronaviruses at that Wuhan Institute between 2014 and 2021. Many of the emails between Morens and Daszak privileged EcoHealth with, quote, inside information about the status of its more than $4 million NIH grant, project titled, quote, understanding the risk of bat coronavirus emergence. Yeah, this kickback thing is interesting. Inside of the emails released today by Congress, Morens suggests at one point, given that he's helping direct millions of taxpayer dollars to Daszak, my guess he's gonna try and write this off as a joke. But here's how he expressed it. He said in an email, this is August of 2020, ahem, do I get a kickback? He put 4 question marks. Too much effing money. Do you deserve it all? Let's discuss. seriously, this is great news, well-deserved. There is still justice in a Trump-infected universe. Remember, this is a government official at the time talking about the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, referring to the universe as Trump-infected. Trump-infected. So do I get a kickback in the email? So we'll see what happens here. This is all very important. Now add that to the pile of important news today on the origins of COVID. The Biden administration is suddenly taking a hard line against EcoHealth Alliance. So the organization that was taking all of that money and then putting it in Wuhan, suddenly EcoHealth Alliance is now banned from federal grants. And additionally, today's news is that HHS has announced that they are targeting Peter Daszak specifically for what they call debarment, meaning he is not to receive another dime of federal taxpayer money going forward. No more grants, no more contractor work, nothing. No more taxpayer money to this guy. HHS announcing in a letter today. Kind of fascinating. What does it all mean? Well, part of it could mean that they're looking for a scapegoat. They want to get as high as they can without getting to Anthony Fauci. Because at this point, I really am not, other than Republican members of Congress raising these issues, and perhaps we'll get more coming up in the next hour, I haven't heard the Biden administration say one word against Anthony Fauci to suggest that he was involved in a corrupt scheme here. Nothing. Not a word. But boy, doesn't it seem like the walls are closing in? If you've, on Fauci specifically, if you've got Peter Daszak and this guy Morens now in the hot seat, one of them being cut off from any more federal funding going forward because of his behavior during the pandemic. And then two, if you've got this guy Morens having apparently lied to Congress and then admitting inside of emails that he thought would never be made public, here's how to hide information from the American people. Here's how to destroy documents so they don't get FOIA'd. Here's how I will smuggle information to Fauci. You want to send something to him? You send it to me, I'll send it to his private email address, or I will hand deliver it to him. Do not use any government means of communication for anything that involves a smoking gun, he says. The walls closing in on Fauci, closing in on Anthony Fauci now. So the updates ahead on that story, because again, Congress set to question this David Morens guy in very short order. Now, let me add another piece to this. That might not be the biggest news of the day. If it is, it's tied with the story on Hunter Biden. We've got details now about, that guy Kevin Morris, the Hollywood attorney who's been paying all of Hunter's bills, all of them, including paying off his IRS debt, paying for all of his travel to his child support hearings, paying for his artwork. The guy was buying his macaroni art. He was buying the artwork from Hunter, giving him immense amount of cash. That guy, turns out, is CIA protected. A fascinating new development in the Biden family corruption saga, as remember, investigators who were looking into the Hunter Biden finances were warned off of getting anywhere close to Joe Biden. Don't you look at dad. Don't you look at the big guy. Said investigators. It said the feds. They told these IRS investigators to stop. Don't take this down the road you're being led right now. And these IRS investigators, these whistleblowers said, what? I've never seen this. Decades doing this job, investigating things like this. I've never seen this type of interference. Only in the Biden case. And now we're finding out today that interference also extended to Kevin Morris. The federal government interfering in the investigation into the Biden family, stopping investigators from using Kevin Morris as a witness, from questioning him. More details on that ahead. Tristan Leavitt's going to talk about that with us ahead. Coming up, we've got Tristan Leavitt from Empower Oversight talking to us. The IRS whistleblowers are sharing brand new information, or at least they have shared information that is now public, about how the CIA has been interfering in the investigation into the Biden family. Remember in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware under David Weiss, there was an assistant U.S. attorney by the name of Leslie Wolf. She has since left the employment of the federal government. And Leslie Wolf was accused by the IRS whistleblowers of telling them, you are not to look into dad. References to dad, the big guy, ignore those. This investigation will not go there. They accused her of blockading them, When she testified before Congress, I believe that was last year, she gave almost no answers on this subject. Sorry, can't tell you anything. I'm just not in a position to tell you about any of this. So she really walled off Congress from any meaningful answers whatsoever about this. And now we're finding out, according to those same IRS whistleblowers, that at one point, Leslie Wolf was called to a meeting at the CIA. She went to Langley to go meet with the CIA to get a briefing because they specifically wanted to talk to her, according to the IRS whistleblowers, about Kevin Morris. Kevin Morris. And Kevin Morris, this is, remember, he is a guy who met Hunter Biden at a Biden campaign donor event. The two of them just meet late in the campaign. And Morris realizes, at least according to the telling that we've heard in public, he realizes that, oh, this Hunter is going to need some help. He's got all these bills to pay. He's got this IRS problem. We've got to clean this stuff up. And he all of a sudden becomes Hunter Biden's, quote, sugar brother. That's the way he's been described in the press, as the sugar brother of Hunter Biden. He pays all of his bills. He pays everything. Now, they structure this, of course, in the form of a loan, which is the way the Biden family handles all of this, so as not to claim that they're receiving income and have to pay taxes on it. Oh, no, it's a loan. It's a loan. Okay. And he's been paying everything, his legal expenses, his IRS expenses, buying his artwork, taking his equity stake in a Chinese firm. Yeah, that was purchased by Kevin Morris. And so when Leslie Wolf is called over to Langley, hey, we have to talk about Kevin Morris with you. According to the IRS whistleblowers, she comes back kind of starstruck. She literally bought stuff at the CIA's gift shop. She brought back little mugs that said CIA. She's like, see, I was at Langley. Oh, and by the way, they told me we can't interview Kevin Morris. CIA has an interest there. That's all I know. But Kevin Morris is now off limits. I'm sorry, what? What is going on here? And how is the CIA involved in Hunter Biden's life? We'll get into more details in a moment. Tristan Leavitt on the other side of the news. Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Josh Hammer joins us. We'll talk to him about this ridiculous waste of your money to build a pier into Gaza that doesn't deliver anything. It is yet another gigantic Biden administration scam. Josh Hammer joins us at 4 to discuss. Curtis Houck joins us at 5 o'clock from Newsbusters. David Asher talks to us about the origins of COVID and Anthony Fauci's lies and efforts to stop you from finding out the, quote, smoking guns. That's ahead. And you can join us. 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. If you can't tell, I'm doing a lot of juggling of a lot of topics today. This is practically the circus, so enjoy the show. There's quite a few things breaking. Among them, something I just told you about, Hunter Biden has been protected at every turn by members of the federal government working behind the scenes to prevent meaningful investigations into the Biden family from advancing. We know that thanks to a couple of courageous, patriotic IRS whistleblowers who have come forward to share what they saw behind the scenes, that the Biden family was being protected by people saying that you are not to investigate Joe Biden or anything about him, the way he's making his money. Additionally, we find out today that the person who was paying off all of Hunter Biden's debts, a Hollywood lawyer called Kevin Morris, he too was being protected. In fact, according to the IRS whistleblowers, it was the CIA that was preventing them from moving forward on questioning Morris, Hunter's, quote, sugar brother. For more on this, I want to bring in Tristan Leavitt now. He's the president of Empower Oversight, and he's all over all of this. As always, Tristan, good to have you back with us.
Always good to be with you, Vince.
This is a big one. All of a sudden now the CIA is playing a role in protecting the Bidens. What do we know?
Well, I will say up front it's limited in what we know. And just to clarify a couple of things. So the House Ways and Means Committee today released information from the whistleblowers, and one of those included an affidavit from Supervisory Special Agent Shapley. And he identifies in there how during the course of their investigation, Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf was summoned to Langley, Virginia, to CIA headquarters, and they were given a classified briefing about Kevin Morris. We don't know the substance of that briefing. Even if we did, we couldn't talk about it in an open setting, right? But I think it's important to recognize that we don't know whether it was relating to Kevin Morris working with the CIA or with Kevin Morris being a target of the CIA in some way. We just know whatever it was, Leslie Wolf came back and said, yeah, we're not going to be able to call him in court as a witness. So, it raises a lot of questions.
Well, Morris is an important figure for a number of reasons. One of them is that he's paying off all of Hunter Biden's debts and then handling his financial situation broadly, including things like paying for his travel to and from his child support hearings, buying his artwork, taking over the equity stake in a Chinese firm. Morris is heavily involved in Hunter Biden's finances and keeping him afloat. He meets Hunter Biden at a Biden donor event and then all of a sudden decides, I've got to rescue this guy, presumably because he's trying to help the campaign. And this is where the IRS whistleblowers come into play, because at one point, based on their prior testimony, they had believed that there may have been a campaign finance tripwire here that these guys had stumbled across, that there may be some violations of campaign finance law. Isn't that true?
Yeah, going back to the previously released information, they had obtained emails where, as you say, kind of right within just weeks of meeting him, and also right as the primary season was taking off in 2020 for President or for now President Biden, that Morris got so involved and said, hey, we need to do this. We need to try and make some of this stuff go away before these elections. So that was the big question on campaign finance charges. Leslie Wolf was always skeptical of those just on the legal merits, but regardless of those, there were still also these significant questions. Kevin Morris still played a role as it related to the Hunter Biden tax case. And so, barring this, I have to imagine, clearly they wanted to call him as a witness. Let's put it that way, to stick within the confines of what's out there in the case. But yeah, it's out there that he has given more than $5 million to Hunter Biden. And this raises some significant questions about whether any of that was government money, I think.
In fact, Gary Shapley, who we're hearing from today in the form of this affidavit, if you go back in time, his prior testimony, he dated a conversation to May 3rd of 2021. He said that Leslie Wolf, a top prosecutor, of course, on the case, waved the agents off of the campaign finance allegations. So this is and I'm quoting from John Solomon's Just the News here, but this is a kind of a reoccurring theme that Leslie Wolf, this assistant U.S. attorney, was consistently blocking various lines of inquiry or various crimes that may have been committed by or around the Biden family. And now this version of events includes her claiming that she went to visit with the CIA and they said, hey, this super important witness, we're not allowed to talk to him.
That's right. And again, it raises more questions than it answers, frankly, because, again, you have to wonder what's behind the CIA, what information they shared with AUSA Wolf. And it was also somebody from DOJ's tax division. There were two of them that went over there. And then, of course, because Gary Shapley and Joe Ziegler, working the case, that's the sort of information they needed to know. And consistent with all their other testimony in the past saying, hey, we were cut out of the loop. We were not able to pursue not just leads, but we were not able to pursue information that was out there. And so even though he requested to be briefed to receive this classified briefing, AUSA Wolf just let it die eventually. So he never learned what it is that was the impediment to Morris being a witness. And again, if he had, he wouldn't be able to talk about it publicly, right? But he doesn't have any of that classified information because they never allowed the investigators to get that information.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I think all of this, and I just wonder, from where I'm sitting, I wonder if the CIA was really involved here, according in this allegation. They were, and they're stopping. This is they're relaying what they heard from Leslie Wolf. Gary Shapley is.
Right. And keep in mind, Kevin Morris travels, I think, quite a bit internationally. The CIA presumably keeps tabs on that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, even if he wasn't cooperating with the CIA or a source or something like that, again, it raises questions about whether they had derogatory information about him, whether they had reason to be concerned about him from a national security standpoint, because that's also information that could cause, one would think, them to wave somebody off of being a witness in a trial.
Right. But if he comes along and rescues the Bidens at a pivotal point, and you've got federal investigators saying, man, this looks like a campaign finance violation, And Leslie Wolf says you're not to dig into that anymore. And then she also says, hey, the CIA says we're not even allowed to talk to this guy. It all stinks to high heaven is, I guess, the summary I'm trying to say, Tristan Leavitt.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It does. And I know Leslie Wolf would say, look, on the campaign finance charge after Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, that case kind of weakened some of what you can look at here. And of course, this is part of the center of the Trump trial that we've seen, right? In terms of whether a hush money payment, right? There's some legal questions there that I think are fair to ask, but unquestionably, Leslie Wolf on many, many issues and for many people, intervened to say, no, we're not going down that road, including when it came to questions about Joe Biden himself.
Okay, so additionally, I guess the other big item today that really matters is the allegation that Hunter Biden lied to Congress about a range of things in his deposition. What do we know there, Tristan Leavitt?
Well, so there are three different areas where Joe Ziegler, the case agent on the Hunter Biden investigation previously, provided specific examples to the Ways and Means Committee about specific areas that just it's hard to see them as anything other than lies. One of them is Hunter Biden's whole claim that the WhatsApp message that he sent to Zhao, that he sent that to the wrong one, that he was drunk or high. This is where he said, I'm sitting here next to my father, right? And of course, just a couple of weeks later, he received the $5 million. And so, what was previously produced to the committee and released to the public was just a summary. It was an Excel spreadsheet of the messages, and that became the subject of some questions. And people said, well, was it in this format? And clearly it wasn't, right? This is data that's extracted. It came from Apple iCloud backups. And so Special Agent Ziegler provided the whole Celebrite file here. So you can just see all of the data, all the metadata behind these. That makes clear that not only are these accurate text records or WhatsApp message records, also that this definitely was the Zhao that paid the money subsequently and that Hunter Biden threatened. And again, if he was high or drunk, then he was sending some very lucid high or drunk messages there because he really browbeat Zhao and ultimately he got that money. The two other big areas that that Ziegler called out lies are when Hunter Biden claimed that he wasn't the corporate secretary of Rosemont Seneca Bohai. That's a shell company that Hunter Biden established with Devin Archer. And so in the interview, that was part of what Hunter said was, well, all these payments went here and there, but they're not mine. That's all under Devin Archer's control. And this document submitted today shows in his handwriting when he says, I, Hunter Biden, am the secretary of Rosemont Seneca Bohai. So that's clear. And then the third area related to whether or not Hunter helped people obtain U.S. visas. But so these are three really clear, straightforward things. The documents show the facts, and Congress is going to have to make some decisions about how to follow up or act on these clear lies from Hunter Biden to Congress, which is a crime.
Right. Yeah. These are crystal clear lies. You say you're not the secretary, and you literally have like a piece of paper that you've signed where you quote hereby certify I am the secretary. Like it's that's it. I mean, you've got them. That's dead to rights. There, I don't anticipate, though, from where I'm sitting, Tristan, that this is going to lead to some sort of Justice Department pursuit of Hunter Biden beyond what we're already seeing.
I think that's fair, right? And so it's the circumstances where Congress makes a perjury referral are limited anyway, and those go to the attorney for the District of Columbia, and there's a whole host of things that Congress is butting heads with DOJ on already, obviously. But but the American public can see for themselves, right? So I would encourage everybody to go read these documents and read Hunter Biden's transcribed deposition because they're just really brazen lies. And I don't know if he thought no one had any further documentation or how he didn't think that this might be substantiated or come back to bite him. But clearly the truth is there in the documents. So
just if I can return for one moment to Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf, she has since left the federal government, right? She no longer works in the Justice Department.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so that I don't know what she's up to these days, but why haven't we heard from her more since then? I remember in her congressional testimony last year, she basically said, sorry, I can't answer any of the questions you're interested in. Why is that?
Well, at the time, she was claiming both kind of a deliberative process privilege, and these matters obviously are the subjects of prosecution. Since leaving, you see these from time to time. In fact, when even the Trump administration was saying after people had left, well, we're still bound by this, and the Biden administration had to make a decision about whether or not to keep that privilege or waive that privilege. But it's really up to Congress to follow up on that. But the Justice Department would assert the same privileges even though she's gone. And this actually happened, now that I think about it, with a different FBI witness, where still, even though he's out of government, still he was given instructions by the government about what he could and couldn't talk about. But Congress can fight that. I suspect they're just trying to find the right battles and pick those battles. And of course, David Weiss's whole conduct of the case, and not just Leslie Wolf's role in it, has been something they've been scrutinizing. So I'll be very curious to see what happens going forward in terms of what, with all the unanswered questions still out there, which ones they pick to try and follow up on.
Yes,
they did. Just for your listeners to be aware, Congress did several weeks ago send a request for 2 tax attorneys that worked closely with Leslie Wolf, who are line level attorneys, and that's been the subject of some real back and forth because the judge said to DOJ, why are you objecting to these? But on the other hand, they also said to Congress, is this really who you need to get the information from? But that's where they seem to have focused on trying to get more specific testimony to overcome these process objections Justice Department's made.
Yeah, Congress, look, they have so many different types of investigations, but this one, there's so much smoke emanating. They really need to get to the bottom of it. Tristan Leavitt, thank you very much, as always, from Empower Oversight. Good to talk to you today, sir.
Thanks for having me, Vince.
The great Tristan Leavitt. Fascinating scandal developing. More information today as we find out those whistleblowers were told, yeah, the CIA said we weren't allowed to talk to Hunter Biden's money guy. What? I'm sorry? Can you say that again and more slowly so I can understand you? The CIA? What's going on? And you may have put the pieces together. Hopefully I was as clear as I could be when I was talking to Tristan just now. But if this guy comes in just as Joe Biden's campaign is in desperate need of a financial rescue in light of Hunter Biden's many scandals, and when investigators are digging into this, they're waived off of Joe, and they're waived off of campaign finance law violations, and they're waived off of talking to Kevin Morris by the CIA. You start to wonder, right? You start to make some leaps. Like, did the CIA actively intervene to rescue the Biden campaign in the 2020 election? That's at least where my mind's going, listening to all of this. You just have to wonder. They're doing it domestically, 350 now. All right, so we've got a lot of things happening here. Josh Hammer's coming up from Newsweek. We'll talk to him. Curtis Houck as well from Newsbusters. And some testimony today from Anthony Fauci's lieutenant in the government, testifying before the COVID committee today about why he was doing all of this government business on Gmail. Why was he talking to Peter Daszak and telling him how, oh yeah, let's hide all the smoking guns, and if there are any, we'll delete them. And if you want to send something to Fauci, I'll hand deliver it. Don't put anything in government email that could get us in trouble. What might get you in trouble, pray tell? That hearing going on. Let me see, I've got all sorts of calls coming in. Dave's in Alexandria, line 2. Dave, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, hi, Vince. Great show as always.
Thank you.
Question. Cocaine Hunter has one or more benefactors that have, gifted him money over the years, tens of thousands, if not into the hundreds of thousands. Little experience with that with the tax code, in that if a family member gifts a certain amount of money over, let's say, $10,000 or $15,000, someone owes tax on the overage, be it either the recipient or the giver. I think someone owes some big taxes. I've not heard anything about taxes being paid on these monies.
That's something I mentioned in passing in our last segment, which is that the Bidens through the years have structured most of these payments as loans. So in other words, they claim the money is being loaned to them, which helps them evade taxation because it's not income, because you have a promise to pay it back, usually with interest. But I haven't seen any promissory notes. Have you, Dave? I haven't seen any paperwork to support this loan theory. They just keep saying that it's being given to Hunter and company in the form of loans.
I'm sorry, I missed that if you were talking about it. But Hunter himself has said, "Hey, I've been given, I've received gifts from the old-looking guy who sits next to him in congressional hearings. I can't think of his name.
Kevin Morris.
And I think, right. So I don't know. I just think someone might want to take a closer look at that, regardless of how.
Somebody did. Somebody did want to take a closer look. The IRS investigators were very interested in looking at that question. And once they started asking those questions, guess who got involved? That would be the CIA. That's the revelation today. Thank you, Dave. No, Dave definitely is on the right track here. How do you get all this money and not pay taxes on it? The rest of us, somebody cut you a check for $1 million. You think the government would be like, yeah, that's totally fine. The government literally tracks when you transfer more than $10,000 out of your bank account. Oh, look, $10,000 moved. We better track John Smith. Hunter Biden? Don't worry, the CIA's got him covered. It's all so crazy. We've got corrupt. Josh Hammer will be with us coming up just minutes from now. Speaking of corrupt, a publicity stunt that's already cost you nearly $300 million hasn't delivered a single fruit snack to Gaza. Joe Biden doing that. Josh Hammer ahead.